Good day everyone, hope you're doing well. So I was reading the Kaching Mains guide on the Raiden Shogun. It's a very good, very comprehensive guide. I think they cover most of the aspects that you need to cover, like how much ER, artifact substats, really cool stuff, main carry support, sub, and all sorts of nice things. Please check them out. It's really awesome work that they've done. So the one thing that interested me was this little sentence on desynchronized rotations. So what normally happens in Genshin Impact is we want to do synchronized rotations because that allows us to do the maximum amount of damage. So typically, what is a synchronized rotation? Well, it's the way you use your abilities and your ultimate or your elemental burst in such a way that once you've gone through your entire team, you essentially start at one point and you end up back at that same point, and then between each of the rotations the order of those abilities stays the same, so the way in which you execute the ability stays the same. So that's what they call a rotation, and that's typically used for the national team. And obviously in between rotations, since the enemy moves around and can attack you, you want to do a bit of dodging. There might be a bit of downtime, but generally the idea is that you sort of do this very cyclical type of play style. And why you want to do it is because A, it gives you the best chance for maximizing damage via like maximizing your elemental reactions such as vaporize, melt, and putting them in the correct order. And the other reason is that sometimes for a lot of the heroes you want to snapshot the ability buffs. For instance, you can think of Kazuha, Bennett, and then you want to snapshot all of that onto some other hero. I don't know, let's say Xiangling or whichever one you want to use, and then all that damage sort of accumulates and then hits the enemy, and then you repeat the loop all over again. So what's interesting is when you consider something which is called a desynchronized rotation, which uses different abilities upon like repeating the cycle. Now, they say it's an extremely new concept, which I disagree with, because I've been showcasing this since the beginning, and I know other people have also been doing desynchronized rotations for quite a while. The reason why you want to use a desynchronized rotation is because the enemies might respond more dynamically, and they might have like dynamic, let's say, reshielding and other things that can interfere with your rotation. So typically, if you've got a big single target Primo Bishop, a synchronized rotation is really awesome. But if you've got lots of mobs spawning in and out, and the one's got a cryo shield and the other one's got a pyro shield and all of that, then synchronized rotations really start losing the flexibility. So to get a bit out of the theory, let's actually look at a pretty well synchronized rotation. Let me just put off the volume. And you'll see what we'll do is here we're going to press Zhongli's Meteorite, we're going to use Klee's Bombs, then Kujo Sora to boost the attack, and then Raiden Shogun our main DPS, so E, and then her Q, and then she does her damage, she attacks, and then she hits this guy up with Maiden. And now we're going to go again, Zhongli the Rock, and then Klee the Bomb, Kujo Sora, the elemental burst, and then now we're back at Raiden again. You can see the ESO, the exact same abilities in the exact same order that's been repeated, doing the maximum amount of damage that we can. Now comes the rock, and what's next? The bombs, and now you guessed it, next comes Kujo Sora. So we're just waiting for ultimate to come online. There we go. And now back to Raiden Shogun, and then we're going to hit her again, and there we go. So that's a very, very good example of a synchronized rotation. We're using the same abilities in the same order to do the maximum amount of damage and to constantly interrupt the enemy while dropping their defenses via Klee, Kujo Sora buffing the attack, and then Raiden Shogun being our main DPS carry. So how does a desynchronized rotation look like? Well, I found while I was looking for my clips, I accidentally found this on my alt account, and you'll see exactly how a desynchronized rotation is way more better here in this case. This is on a lower abyss floor, so let's just see what happens. We're going to use the Rosaria Q, and then the Xiangling, and then Xingshu, and then finally Raiden Shogun. So now she's built maximum resolve stacks, and we got an achievement which is really cool. And now we're just going to pretty much take out this guy. So what you'd expect now is that we want to start off again with Rosaria, but just waiting for the abilities to come back online. So this is the downtime, and now we're going to go again. But what we're going to do now is we're going to now change up the order to Xingshu, then the Raiden Shogun, take out these two enemies, And now we're going to go into Xiongling. So you can see the order and the way we use the abilities is a lot different, because if we didn't have Xiongling, then the others would struggle to break this cryo shield, but now it's very easy. And now we can just sort of continue with where we left off, and our main DPS Raiden Shogun sort of just destroys him. So this is a good example of a desynchronized rotation. So which one should you use and when? Well, typically a lot of theory crafting is focused on Abyss floor 12. Sorry for that. And what happens is you've got very very specified sets of enemies, like the Kairagi and all the little samurai dudes. So it's very easy to build a comp that does the maximum amount of damage. But when you get to the more dynamic Abyss floors, and especially at the lower ARs, a lot of people would find that instead of just waiting until you're level 80 or 90 and then wiping the lower levels and getting to the higher levels, it's much better to start understanding what desynchronized rotations are and responding dynamically to the field. I don't think it's a new concept. I think it's a different play style, and hopefully MiHoYo gives us more enemies, like in the Vagabond event, where you can't just run the national team and think you'll win. The way in which you play, and then perhaps like even using some off-meta picks and with desynchronized rotations, it's got to be the way in which you'll be carried. And I really hope the game takes that direction, because it's going to be way more fun than just a set sort of formulaic national team, Morgana freeze, whatever, which is getting a bit stale at the moment, in my opinion. So yeah, that's what I want to discuss under desynchronized rotations. Cheers.